As I mentioned in the opening, new COVID-19 cases in the US have been trending downward in recent weeks, but we still have nearly twice the number of new daily cases as we had in June. Mike, are we hitting a new but simply higher plateau?
Well, first of all, we have to remember we're on a journey. Somewhere between those very first cases in Wuhan and one day to a dream where a vaccine makes it possible to tell us that we are done with cases. And what we have to understand is that's just what we're going to be doing. And so, if anything, let me try to share with you today my vision for where we're at on that historic map of COVID-19 and what it looks like today and what I think it'll look like in the near term. Just from a historic perspective, remember that in early March in the United States, there was a sense, oh, this is not going to be a big deal. A couple of cases, an imported situation here, case here. And then all of a sudden we saw it blow up, literally, like a match to a gas can. And by April 10th, we were at 31,709 cases for the 7-day moving average for new cases per day. That's when we hit the height of activity in New York City. And in a sense, we felt like much of the house was on fire. Now, we know back then that, in fact, that wasn't the case, that there were many parts of the United States that would not see a COVID case for weeks and potentially months to come. But that's where the sense was how bad it was. And then with the lockdown, flattening the curve, whatever terminology you want to use, we continued to see behavior change, particularly in the areas that were most adversely impacted, like New York City. And by June 8th, we hit an all-time 7-day low, a 7-day average of 21,484. And we thought that drop of 10,000 cases was so good that we just decided we were done. And you all know that. You've heard me talk about this on multiple occasions. And that really hit the bottom for us in terms of new cases on a given day. And then that all coincided with post-Memorial Day, the protests. It coincided with the warm weather, people all wanting to get out, go and entertain themselves. Pandemic fatigue had finally taken over. And then between June 8th and July 25th, we watched cases go to a 7-day average for the number of cases per day to 66,781 in this country. Almost a threefold increase in the number of cases, and twice as much as we had seen in April 10th on the previous house on fire. Well, if we look at where we're at today, we can see that we're coming down. Right now, the 7-day average for cases is 50,543 cases today. The average deaths for the 7-day period is 1,061 deaths per day. And it really represents, I think, the beginning of a next stage. I might say we're in another inning, maybe inning 5. And what's happening here is that I think we're going to hit this new plateau. I could see it being the high 40s, low 50s. I shared this with you last week, and in fact, the week before. And it seems to be fitting right into place. But what's going to change this is that over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks, with the opening of high schools, the opening of colleges and universities and technical schools, I think we're going to see an explosion of cases. And I know we'll talk more about this in a moment about schools. In this case, colleges and universities being challenged. This is exactly what's going to happen now in the next phase. And I think we're going to see a sizable increase in cases around the country and spill over into adults. Clearly we're going to see another big spike. And I just worry that we have become far too accustomed, we're too comfortable. Almost we unfortunately expect what's happening to happen. Remember, please, when we look back on that April date and we had 31,000 cases of COVID-19 reported that day, the house was on fire and we couldn't believe it could get this bad. Wuhan was only 3,000 in some cases. Then we look at June 8th and it came down. And then we hit that 66,000 case number in July. And suddenly April 10th doesn't look so bad. Well, I worry now that we're going to hit a new peak and we're going to look back one day and say, July 25th, that wasn't so bad. And I don't think people yet get that. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, I know that this is not a message anyone wants to hear, but it's all about our commitment to making sure that it doesn't happen. But remember, only 8 to 10% of the US population has likely been infected with this virus and will have developed some immunity to it. We've got a long ways to go to get to herd immunity. We're going to talk more about that this afternoon, but I'm going to tell you right now, I still stay with that 50 to 70% number as being the number we have to achieve. So we have a lot of wood for this coronavirus forest fire to burn, and we are the wood. And so this is why I cannot ever stop talking about the need for distancing, for the need for preventing the transmission of this virus. So yes, right now, we're in this flat phase of cases, maybe even going down a little bit. People will probably feel comfortable. It's not, out of control. Well, it is out of control. It is out of control. You don't have this many cases and don't think it's not in control. Right now, the 51 states in the District of Columbia, 7 states are seeing increases in cases. That number was at 3 last week. We have 24 where it's flat. Last week, that was 26. And we have 20 where cases are decreasing. That number is getting smaller. So I think over the course of the next few weeks, as we see more and more outbreaks associated with adolescents and young adults in schools, and then the spillover to the rest of the population, we're going to see a big increase again in cases.